When a guy asks a woman out and they go out and they talk, they have a couple of dates, what starts to happen is a guy will start thinking that he can break some of his normal dating rules, or more importantly, he's learned stuff from me and he's been implementing it and it's been working. And then he gets like the third or fourth date and he's like, oh man, the stuff Harry's talking about, it's been working great so far, but I think I can bend some of these rules because this girl right here, she feels different. Like, I know he said, don't text her every single day. I know he said, don't invite her out on a date every single day. I know he told me not to talk about my feelings, but this woman right here, based on our conversations and the time we spent together, this girl is different. I've dated trash girls. I've dated like virgin girls. I've dated all these different kinds of girls. And yeah, Harry stuff or the other stuff that I've read and stuff would have worked on them. But this one seems different. And if I try to do the stuff on her that I would do on these other women, I'm going to lose her. So you know what? I'm going to just go ahead and just throw all the stuff I've learned out the window because I can be open with her. I can be honest with her. I can tell her my thoughts and feelings. I can text her every single day. I can ask her all the time, and it's going to be no freaking problem. And then I get the inevitable message of like, Harry, I don't know what's going on. I was texting her all the time and I told her I loved her and I told her I wanted to see her more. And now she's heading for the hills. I don't know what happened. I thought she was different. I thought she was special. I really thought she was going to be the one. And now she's gone just like all the others. And sadly, that is a lesson that all of us men are going to have to go through. And it's the lesson of learning that no woman is the exception to dating rules. I'm sorry if you're a younger dater and this is your first time hearing this, I'm sorry that I have to burst your bubble today, but the woman that you're crushing after, the one that you think is oh so special, the one that you put on this high pedestal and think that she's completely different from all the women, she is not different. She is not accepted. She's not the exception to any of the dating rules that are out there that I've spouted, that other various gurus have spouted. The reality is that unfortunately, no matter what woman you are dating across the board, for the majority of them, they are going to be the same in a variety of ways. They're going to be the same. I wrote this down. I said that women will typically say the same things to you. They will typically show you the same type of signals to indicate interest. They will show the same signs to indicate a lack of interest. And they will use the same lies and lines as other women when they don't like you, but they don't want to hurt or reject you. Or they want to reject you, but they don't want to hurt your feelings in the process, And so, especially as if you're a new dater, this could be an interesting thing to hear because in your head, part of the reason you're picking the girl that you like is because she's different. You might have been a guy that's been hella successful, but these other girls whatever. Or it could be you are not all that successful and all these other girls were just rejecting you. And then this one girl comes along and she actually says, I'm accepting you, which in either of those cases by default makes this woman different because how many women across the board are trying to go out with us? Realistically, even the hottest of hot guys, it still takes him quite a bit of work to be able to get the number of women in comparison to a woman that's average. I can just be like, hey, I'm open for business, and dudes will just rush to her. Between the two sexes, we typically get less. So when we have a woman that's legitimately showing us interest, we automatically think that she is by default different. Now, I'm going to go into the 5 reasons why as men, we start to think that the women that we are after and like are the exceptions to the rules, even though they're not. So the first reason is the personal bias based on our ideal of what our perfect mate looks like. So our personal bias. We have a thing for curvy girls with short hair that are 5'3" and smells really nice, right? And so you see all these girls out there and most of them are not matching that. And then you meet that one girl that has all that criteria. So your brain is automatically thinking, I got to get her. I want her. This is it. She matches all the stuff that I had on my bucket list. And so by default of that, she's the perfect mate. Now, in the process of that, we might overlook some other things, which I'll get into in a minute. But suffice to say, because our brain is so hyped up about the fact that we found what we consider our perfect match, we end up by default thinking that she is now the exception because we couldn't find anybody out there up to this point that had these 5 or 6 things that we wanted. She has it. Therefore, she's the exception. The second reason why we think that women are the exception to the rule is because of putting her on a pedestal. When we find that girl that we click with, we have good communication with, we gel well, then we, by default, put her up on a higher pedestal because meaning she is above all the other women that we've come across up to this point. And therefore, because we're putting her up so high, she is the exception by default. These other ones around here, they do not compare to the flower that is now up here and that we're looking and hoping to bag. All right. The third reason why men think that the women they're after are the exception to the rule is selective perception. So when you see a girl that you feel as though she's the absolute perfect thing, you start inadvertently not looking at some of the other things she's bringing to the table that could very easily make her the same. So I'll give you a perfect example. You ask her out on a date after like 2 or 3 weeks of talking, and she's like, I don't know, maybe. Now, I teach you guys all the time that a maybe answer is a no. Across the board, if you're giving you a maybe, it is not a definitive yes, therefore it is a no. Do not assume it is a date. But now you meet this girl who you've had 2 weeks of flowing conversations, of deep personal conversations about things, and you've expressed things to her that you've never expressed to anybody else. You now feel she's the exception. So when she says maybe, you're going to think, oh, I mean, she said maybe, but that's because she's probably busy because she's not the kind of girl that would say maybe and not mean yes. Like, I'm going to give her an exception. Or she says some bolder stuff on the date. Like she says like, oh, I've hooked up with like 2 or 3 guys and that's it, which as a guy, that's probably a lie. But you're thinking, but no. She comes from a Christian background. She's a straight A student. So of course, even though I should be multiplying her number times 3, she, pedestal, flower, she would never, even though during the date, she has like a bunch of dudes that are hitting up her phone and it's going off every 5 minutes. But no, we're going to ignore that because you're deciding not to see these things in hopes of keeping her as the exception to the rule, right? The fourth reason that you think that the woman you are after is the exception is because, let's be honest, guy, you desire a special connection. Guys go years without getting a first date, a first kiss, a first hookup. And when we finally start to get these things, our desire can take over our ability to actually see the situation for what it really is. So while you're thinking she's the exception, part of it's because you are so longing to just be in a partnership. You're like, God, I'm just so tired. This girl is giving me some kind of attention. So I'm going to just assume that she's the exception because I need to get somebody. If I say no to every single girl that I'm seeing flaws in, then I'm not going to get any girl. And so I got to say yes to her, and I got to see her as extra special, even if she may not be. Which leads to actually number 5. The fifth reason that men think the woman that they're dating is the exception is because of a lack of experience or exposure. Now, when I was in my 20s as an early dater, I would never dream of women doing, being, acting, or saying the same things as a plethora of other women. So, when you first start dating, you're not thinking that if a woman says, oh, I'd love to go on a date, oh, but I'm busy, that she's not actually busy. You just assume that, oh, she's really busy. And when she gets back to me, that'll let me know for sure that she wants to date me. But now add like 20 years to that, we've heard that a bunch of times. And nowadays, if I hear, oh, I'm really busy, my first thought is like, oh, she's not interested. And it's easier for me to get by that now because I don't have in my head that, oh, sure, these 2 other girls that I tried to date before said they were busy and then they weren't. But this girl, she's the exception. She really is busy. She's a lawyer. She's got papers. She's in school. So of course no, I have learned when women like you, they help you. And more importantly, they find time to see you. So I've learned in that example, if she's not finding time, it means that she's not interested because women in their life, they're trying to find love more so than try to connect with the job. Like the job's important, but they're looking for a long-term partner. And that job is not going home with them at night to cuddle them. So you got to figure if a woman is so bold as to say, I'm too busy to suddenly date you, how did it go from she was willingly a participant in seeing you to suddenly, oh, she's not? It's because she's lost interest. But if you don't know that, you're going to assume her saying she's busy means that she actually means that because she's the exception and she is not the rule. And this is why it goes back to that you need to be treating every woman that you are starting to date the exact same. I've put up a couple of reality points here. Reality point number one is that until you have spent a decent amount of time with the woman, you do not actually know her well enough to give her special treatment. So you cannot just make automatic assumptions of her being the exception and being so great after only like 1 or 2 dates. That is not enough time to actively know what her patterns are and to know what she's saying is actually gospel of what she means. All right. You need 2 to 3 months, just like women take with us, to be able to really vet her out, see what she's about, and then figure out the ins and outs of how she moves to figure out if she actually is, quote unquote, the exception. And even then, I can assure you, she is not. And then the second reality is this, and this is very important to hear, is that you do not lose any points for treating all women the same during the dating process. Why do I point this out? Because I get some guys that message me and say this, well, like, I hear what you're saying, Harry, about, for example, we'll use texting, right? I hear what you're saying about the whole texting thing, and I know I'm supposed to wait 4 days between dates to contact her, but this one girl that I took out, she said she's not all about games, and that if a guy wouldn't text her, blah, 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 blah. Okay, fine. So now you make the assumption that the thing you should do then is to just text her all the time because she doesn't want to play games. But then you get surprised when later on she starts to ghost you, and come to find out it's because you were texting too much. So I say this, with the texting example, let's say you wait 4 days to text her, right? And you hit her on the 4th day and she's a little butthurt and kind of mad, right? But did she lose interest? Because all we care about is, based on what we do, does she increase interest, keep interest, or lose interest? A woman that has high interest in you, whether or not you text her the next day or 4 days from now, she's going to still have interest. But there's a better chance of you losing points with a woman if you text her the next day versus whether she's a person that's like, hey, you can text me every day and it won't bother me at all. If you wait 1 day to text her or 4 days to text her, you are still going to have her attraction. But because you don't know which woman it's going to be that's going to be accepting of that, then across the board, your rule should be wait 4 days. Because a woman that's highly interested is not going to be butthurt if you waited 4 days. Sure, you could have texted her the next day, but also you could be dating a woman that is going to be bothered if you text her the next day, but won't be bothered if you text her on day 4. The point is that across the board, the rules that the stuff that I've given you guys for tips and put out there, the stuff that other content creators have put out there, the reason that we put these tips out there is because there are tons of dating guides that have studied across the board how women typically react to various parts of the dating game, both positively and negatively. I've learned a variety of things that will get you positive results. And so I put them out there and they work because women across the board will typically react the same to the same kind of treatment. This is why I tell you guys, for example, it takes women 2 to 3 months to solidify her feelings, because across the board with women, if you pace out your dating time to 2 to 3 months, the result more often than not is going to be you get into a relationship. And I'll get into some of the examples of things later on about this, but suffice to say that, again, you don't lose points for going slower. At worst, she'll come to you and say, hey, so it's been a month and a half. Why aren't we in a relationship? And it's better for her to do that than for you to assume after a month and a half, well, she's different. She's the exception to the rule. We've been seeing each other every day, even though Harry told me not to. And so I think she's actually ready for relationships. You know what? I'm not going to listen to Harry at all and wait for her to ask me. I'm going to ask her. And I've had plenty of guys do that. And they go and ask the girl. And this girl, who was still in the process of building her interest, suddenly says, you know what? I'm not quite there yet. And you seem to already be there. It's not fair to you for me to keep dating you then. So I'm out. And then guys are like, what's going on? Because you assumed, because she was the exception, that she could handle you coming to her and emoting all these things and saying, I want to be the boyfriend now. And what I tell you guys, wait 2 to 3 months, they will come to you. Across this is what works. I've only gotten into one relationship where I asked the girl first before she came to me, can we be in a relationship? It was my first girlfriend when I was 15. She was only there for the summertime. So she was probably like, I mean, whatever, like I'll be here for 3 weeks and I'm out of here. So sure, why not? But like, every relationship I've gotten into since then, it was because at around the 2 to 3 month mark, the woman came to me. Now, I've had women I dated, that first night I could tell we were going to be together. But I also knew that that does not mean that just because I'm feeling that that's a reality or that her feelings are there yet. Because by not treating these women as the exceptions to the rules, I was able to say, you know what? More often than not, women need time and they're going to come to me when they're ready. and I'll do that. And I've been able to get into relationships as a result of that versus what I was trying to do early on. I'm going to come to you and tell you my feelings and write you a note and all this stuff that resulted in it's too much too soon and I'm out. You know? So this is, again, why you do not treat women like the exception.
You's a bad boy, but you can't stop, won't stop. You a high earning, high value, high class man. You a high earning, high value, high class man. You a high earning, high value, high class man. You a high class man. You a high class man. You a high earning, high value, high class man. You a high